Hey Joe.
Oh,
Hi, wow, your hair's great.
thank you. I tried it last night just for this.
Oh, you did it last night? Just
Yeah.
for this? I'm
Top
I'm honoured. It makes me think of when you get a slushie and you just ask for everything.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, raspberry and strawberry. I'll have all the drinks, please. Okay, so I'll just wait for a few more folks to join us and then we can get cracking. How's the tea?
It's good.
Sorry, you were going to say something then?
No.
Okay, well, cheers. Okay, we've got a few coming in now. People we know. All our favourite hecklers. Hello, Robin. Hello, Janan. Hello, Nick. Anna. Hello. Right. Zizio. I know Anouk is there. She said she was about to appear, so she's usually reliable for hitting us with questions at the last minute. Okay, that'll do. So it's lockdown, as we all know. Everyone in the whole world is experiencing this, but we still have to talk about it. So let's be Hema specific about this. What have you been up to during the lockdown to try and sort of keep on top of your Hema practices?
Not as much as I intended to when this all started. We went into Hema in pajamas with all these grand plans of doing things every day, and I have not done things every day. So I'm kind of trying to keep myself active. I've got like a single dumbbell and just doing whatever I can with that, body weight exercises. And I've put a target on the balcony and confusing people walking past by doing thrusting practice.
You live in an apartment, is it?
Yeah, I live in a little flat. So
okay.
I do have some outdoor space, and kind of it's communal and on a very steep hill. So space-wise, I'm quite limited. So
Yeah.
doing what I can.
Okay. I mean, I think for me, I don't know if my experience is typical, but I, like you say, went into, sort of banded together with a bunch of like-minded folks online and we're like, yeah, we're going to do this kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, doing stuff. My momentum has gone. It's like it reminds me of like if you decide to start writing a blog, you come out with all these cool ideas and then you kind of, as time goes on, your momentum just goes like this. And I'll be honest, I've had 2 weeks where I have done virtually nothing. But I'm trying not to beat myself up about it too much because I'm kind of just consoling myself with the fact that we're all in the same, everyone is in the same position. There is absolutely no reason why we will have to be like machines and go out every day and read every single book that's ever existed and, write a new translation or whatever. Because the actual experience that everyone is going through is a huge weight in itself. We're all sort of like trying to fill our time with fun things to do because that's the thing that we have now is oodles of time. But we just got this thing, the whole epidemic and everything that goes with it, just sort of hanging over everyone, and just having that in the back of your mind anyway is a lot to bear. So I think we owe it to ourselves to be a little bit kinder and not so like judgmental of ourselves.
The people are going, if you don't come out of lockdown with like having read that novel you always wanted to write and you didn't lack the time, you lacked the motivation and dedication. It's like, no, you got to give yourself a bit of slack. In a period of major anxiety.
It's huge anxiety. I mean, and if people who suffer from anxiety already, this is kind of like, well, at first, I think all the people who suffer from anxiety were like, well, this is just normal. This is what life is like. Welcome to my world kind of thing. But now it's kind of a sort of a cumulative effect, I think. But yeah, it is hard to keep up that enthusiasm for something, especially in this, this isolation from one another. But we do have, luckily, the internet. We do have technology. We are still able to reach out to one another and talk like we're talking now. So there are creative ways to get around the thing and keep yourself distracted and keep yourself motivated. Little and often, I think, is probably better than just going hard at it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Now, my next question for you is, I never said this right, is it Maya or Maya?
I say Maya.
Maya, because German, isn't it? Now, imagine, if you will, that no one has ever heard of Maya. Now, I only vaguely know like some stuff about Maya because I've studied different systems and I've only dabbled in Maya. But just imagine that I'm someone who's thinking about taking up Hema, and I'm not sure what system to go for. What would you say to them?
So Maya's 1570 book is a complete system, and it teaches multiple weapons where techniques transfer across. So you study Maya and you can study everything, and you can get a good grounding in kind of fencing as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great for kind of modern humorists because it starts off with the longsword, whereas say Fiore system starts with grappling and kind of adds more weapons. Maya's base weapon is the longsword, so it's great where people who are coming into humor being like, I want to do longsword, like so many people do. They can start at the beginning of the book and that's what they're handed.
Oh, right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but there's so much more to it than that, and I've been studying it for 4 years and I barely scratched the surface. There's so much more to it than what I looked at.
There's probably a lifetime's worth of study in any one system, isn't there?
But like once you get further in, like there's so much more interesting things than the longsword. There's lots of other techniques which I really like further on in the book. So I would advise anyone who has looked at the longsword, read the rest of it.
Because when you say Maya, people always think, because Maya is a later system, isn't it? I call it a system because it's not just longsword; it's a whole sphere of weapons. He teaches a system, and it's a later system. People typically just think of the longsword, as you say, and maybe that is because that is what most people in Hema study. And when people want to get into it, that's usually the first thing they kind of fix on is the longsword. But I think the other thing that Maya is known for is the dusak and the rapier as well, or what is probably better known as the side sword in Italian systems. So have you as a school touched on either of those much?
When I first started, we did a lot of we do like hour of longsword and then an hour of something else, whereas now we've kind of changed the way we teach, and there's so many more people that we do an hour of whatever we're studying and then an hour of free play time, so that we have enough time for people to have that free play with the space.
Mm-hmm.
But what we used to do was kind of cycle through secondary weapons.
Right.
We looked at the dagger and the dusak is what I remember particularly studying. So I have kind of dabbled in those things, but nowhere near as much as I would like. I've been spending some of my lockdown time reading the rapier section, which seems very nice and fancy.
We've got all this time, but no one to practice with. So you are, as well as being a fencer and an instructor, you are a founder of Adel Fencing Academy in Cardiff.
Yes.
And you run that along with Nick. How long has it been established now? Is it a year?
Yeah, so we sorry, my nose is scribbling.
It's that season.
We launched officially just before the Albion Cup last year, but it had been kind of in the works for about 2 years before that, planning and designing and making sure we had everything in place that we wanted before we kind of showed our baby to the world.
It was a long time coming, that one. And what do you think, it's your first year of having your own club rather than sort of a franchise on a larger, I was going to say corporation, but a larger sort of established group, which I think it was Virtus was your sort of original club, wasn't it? So what, in your first year as an independent school of your own, what would you say were the biggest challenges that you faced?
I think the biggest challenges have kind of been the same. The separation didn't change much in terms of the way things were run, apart from we had a bit more leeway on how we did things and that kind of stuff. But the kind of general things of getting people through the door and getting them to stay, kind of keeping things running, keeping things interesting for people, the balance of like having new people and kind of making sure that they get all the foundational stuff, but keeping the kind of classes interesting.
So it's keeping the balance.
Keeping the balance, keeping people coming and getting people in is kind of the classic issues Hema Clubs have.
Yeah, it's keeping the balance between your experienced and your noobs. It's getting people through the door. It's attrition. But something I know that you guys do very well, which is something that I always recommend, is rather than just having people wander in willy-nilly, is you run a course, don't you? You do a beginner's course. And how does that work?
That was something that we were quite keen to implement, and kind of think we ran 1 or 2 as Virtus, but it was something that was like a big part of Adel.
Your own thing.
Because we used to have like a small group of people in the corner of the room being taught like the basic master strikes or whatever, until they had a vague idea, and then we'd chuck them in with everyone else. And we found that it was inconsistent. We had people show up once and then never hear from them again.
They get put off.
We had people who would spend like 6 months in the beginner's class and never want to join everyone else. And so we thought, we'll write a syllabus of everything that we think everyone should know before they can kind of dive in and pick and mix of whatever's being taught that week. And this is what it also helps people, like in the advanced class. There were times where people were losing out on training time because they were having to teach their training partner something really simple because they hadn't picked it up properly in the beginner's class. So having that dedicated time with a group of people who spend 8 weeks together, they can bond as a group.
And they're all on the same level as well.
They're all on the same level. So we can watch them grow, help them, give them more dedicated time and space, which was a big issue where people were shoved in the corner and not have the space that they need. It's allowed us to take on more beginners, which is nice, and they kind of help each other keep coming back.
I don't think you can possibly put a value on the camaraderie that exists between people who start a hobby together, because like that is basically friendship, isn't it? It's going through an experience together and growing and watching each other develop. And I think having done that in my school, the people they stay friends all the way through, and they're more likely to keep going as well. This is what I was talking with Shani about the other day. It's not just getting people into the school or the club that is the issue. It's getting them to stay there and want to be there. And one of the most valuable ones is my friends are there. That's the people I want to hang out with are. So your club is known for being very, very friendly, very warm, very welcoming. And so I think, yeah, having that structure as well as that warm, friendly environment is a key. What do you think? Say someone else came up to you and said, "I want to start my own Hema Club." What would your top bits of advice be for them?
It takes more paperwork than you think.
Yes, it's like an iceberg.
People they think about the basic things. Oh, I need somewhere to be, and as an instructor, you only need to stay one page ahead of your students. So many Hema clubs start with someone really keen with a book, and if you stay one page ahead, one chapter ahead, you can always keep teaching. But the kind of organizational side of insurance and making sure people have signed a thing that says, I know I might get hurt, I'm not going to sue you.
Paying their subs, getting equipment in.
And also you need a lot of storage space for all the club kit. An easy way to transport it. When we started off, Nick and I were getting a taxi and having to ring up and be like, can you send a really big one? And the moment we got a car, it was
7-seater, please. Oh God. Right. I have to ask this because the members of some of our viewers it's become a tradition now where we have to see cute things in this live stream. Anouk has just said, where are the pets?
Sadly, I do not have any pets.
Right, but
I've brought the frog.
Oh, we've got a frog.
This is Chunkin Norbert, and he's from Build-A-Bear.
Oh, so you designed him?
Yeah, I stuffed him. He's got a magnifying glass, and he has a detective hat somewhere, but I don't know where it is.
Oh,
I forgot that in Build-A-Bear you have like the thing, you name it and you make a birth certificate, but the birth certificate prints out behind the till, so you have to go up to the till and they're like, what did you call your bear? And I'm like, Chimkin Norbert, and she's like, okay.
Chimkin Norbert?
Yes.
Of course.
So it's like chicken nugget, but like a name.
Oh, I see. Chimkin Norbert. Okay, get it.
Yeah.
It is worthy. Okay. The frog is worthy. It's acceptable.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
We accept the tribute.
I didn't get another lockdown happen.
Okay, let's see what these folks are saying. Comox Valley Combat Guild. Same fizzle of momentum here too, but my new webcam and mic are in the mail, so I'm preparing a resurgence. Anouk, I want to see abs on you two in August. Okay. I got the moves like Maya. Okay, Maya is a bay. Okay, where's the proper questions? Amazing hair. Yasin, do you alternate Maya with anything else, especially with later stuff that include weapons not included in Joaquin Maya? So do you ever go down any other sort of dark alleys and study other masters, or is it just Maya all the time?
It's not Maya all the time. We occasionally kind of drift off. We will use plays from earlier sources to teach concepts sometimes. So like if there's a Ringek play or something that makes sense.
So shows like this is what this evolved from, this is why we're doing it kind of thing.
So sometimes when we teach things like the Shield-How, where it's quite different between sources, we'll say like, this is how Ringek does it, this is how Maya does it. Do what you feel is appropriate in the situation.
Okay. So there's a bit of comparison.
Yeah, so comparison and also sometimes we look at we've been looking at kind of some more niche things like pound fight.
Like what, sorry?
Pound fight. I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Oh, I don't know that one. Haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, the longsword source who came a little bit earlier than Maya,
Okay.
but was contemporary of him. And Matt Spooner, I think it was, taught an excellent class at the May Melee last year.
All right.
And then Nick kind of
Appropriated it.
Appropriated the yes, no.
Matt Spooner's class.
Yeah, so things like that, and then hey, Anouk says I said it right.
You did. Say it again. How is it called?
Pound pint.
Can somebody, one of you guys, type it in the comments so we know what we're talking about? I've never heard of it, because to me it sounds like you're saying Fahrenheit. Oh dear. Any more questions? Comox Valley Combat Guild. I keep saying Sword Guild. Comox Valley Combat Guild. We get most new people through beginner workshops. Pretty rare to get new walk-ins. Robins, or totally agree on the beginners courses. Wish we did them. Nick, not Nick, Yasin again. Other than you and Nick, how many other instructors do you have to help run the beginners course?
We have me, Nick, and then we kind of have an in and out group of people who help. So our kind of main third instructor, and then sometimes we'll have kind of senior students come along, and I think it's a good way of helping people kind of go over the basics again, and like the best way to make sure you really know something is to teach someone else.
Yeah.
So we encourage people to come along, drop in and out of the beginners course once they've completed it. So we'll often have like me and Nick, and then kind of three or four other people. Richard, Rhiannon is often there, and then a few other people just like there to either go over it themselves or help out. And so like if we're doing pair drills, we'll try and pair up someone more experienced with someone less experienced if we've got people there to kind of give them that extra bit of advice along the way when we can't like be one-to-one with them.
So something I was told when I started to become an instructor was, like you say, revisiting those basic skills, coming back to them, and being able to teach something is a really good way of testing whether you know it or not. But when you're learning something, for example, fencing, it's like a mountain, but you're not going up it in a straight line. You're going up it in a spiral. So you're visiting things, and each time you go round the mountain, you're looking down and you're seeing the things that you saw before, but you've got a different perspective. So it's like it's good to just come around and visit stuff again. It's not like you visit something once and it sticks with you. You visit it, you learn it, you get used to it, and then stuff drops off. You'll retain something, but that's why it's good to just revisit stuff and just replenish and refill your knowledge. And again, like, because when you've learned all these other things, like say you've gone from longsword to Dusak to rapier, learning those other things will then teach you more things about the longsword, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
Just to using different muscles and using different skills and moving in a different way will inform your previous skill sets. Where are the pets? Okay, we've been over this. Comox Valley Combat Guild. How much equipment do you clubs keep? So what sort of stuff do you have now? Do you keep stuff on site, or do you still have to cart it to and fro in cars and things?
Sadly, our training hall doesn't have any storage space for us, but we have, I think, about 15 masks of different sizes, approximately the same number of pairs of gloves, but in various states of disrepair, as red dragons tend to end up. Pets. I was
taught to not look after well, to look after this stuff like masks and the gloves and stuff, but don't make them too well
Oh, they're
maintained.
consumables.
Well,
And
yeah,
also, if
because
it
otherwise
smells
people will never
horrible,
want to
people
buy
buy
their own
their own.
stuff. If
Yeah.
unless you know if the mask smells of lavender every time you put it on, why would you want to buy your own? If it smells of Doritos when you put it on, you might want to consider going online and buying your own stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we've got about 10 or 12 Red Dragon / Rawlings longswords and a few other bits and pieces, but that's our kind of base kit.
So when you run a beginner's course, how many places are there typically?
Depending on, we tend to limit it based on kit.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and the size of the hall as well.
So we're like, right, so this time round we've got this many pairs of masculine gloves and swords that are usable. It averages, we tend to say that there's a cap of 10. Our last one we ended up with slightly more in the beginning, and then a few people dropped out, so kind of, yeah, between 5 and 10 is our average for a beginner's course.
I find 10 is my magic number, I think, for keeping people. The last two beginners course I ran, I think it was about 10 to 14 people. One time I ran a course and there were 20 people to one instructor, and none of them stayed. And I think it's because it was just too much. I think I just couldn't split myself into 20 pieces and give them enough attention. I think that's why. But I think like 10 to 14 is good, especially if you've got someone helping you. The last two groups we've run, they've been really well bonded, like we were saying earlier. They're really a really good camaraderie between them and with the instructor as well. You have a good bond with everyone. And it's really sad because we've just finished. I don't know what stage you're at with yours. We just finished our beginners course and we're like, right, you're ready to join the big kids now. And then everything's kind of shut.
We were kind of starting to think of dates for the next course and bringing the latest like beginners class into the main group, and it was like, no.
Oh, sad, isn't it? I mean, we've got a little WhatsApp group for all of them now, and it's nice that people are on there chatting and we're giving them resources and things to do. So fingers crossed when this all blows over, we'll all be back to how we were.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's
yeah.
Team pit.
Plushy drinking buddy. This is a good question from Robin. Tips on getting better. Well, tips on getting gender parity in your club.
That's a really difficult one because it's been something that I've been trying to do for 4 years, and I'm still not sure what works and what doesn't. But I think getting women through the door is a big thing. Like, kind of, I think it's more common for a guy to be like, I want to do sword fighting, Google it, and then just show up.
You have to beat them off with the shitty stick, like, get away. We've got plenty of you. You don't even have to advertise it, they can smell it. They just turn up.
Whereas women are less likely to have been socialized into the kind of situation where you know that's a possibility. So advertising where women are more likely to see it. I've done targeted adverts for kind of women in the 18 to 30 range before. And having women in your advertising material just being like, look, it is a possibility for people like you do this is a massive thing for making people even consider showing up.
Yeah.
And having visible visible women, visible queer people, visible people who aren't like your typical straight cis male martial artist, makes people feel more comfortable in that kind of situation, and having the more social aspects of things, going to the pub and stuff.
I think people
Making sure
underestimate how strongly sword fighting is associated with a particular demographic, to the extent where it repels other demographics because they don't think it belongs to them. It's like, this is a cis-het white male thing. It's not for me. I'm not allowed to go near it, kind of thing. Good example is a friend of mine who was born and raised in London to Jamaican and African parents. So she's a person of colour, lives in multicultural London, you know, and she wandered into a hall where she saw people fighting with swords. And this is someone who grew up in like the heart of London, thought that looks really cool, but it's not for me. This is a white person's thing. And that's what all her sort of like the messages she was getting, but it's nothing to do with the people in the room. That's just like what culture tells us. That's what history, that's what you know, psychologically, that's what we're conditioned to think. Like, this is a white male straight thing. It's not for me. And I will admit that that's the first thing I thought when I walked through the door. When I saw people doing sword fighting, I was like, this is not for me. Not in a I don't want to do that, in a kind of I'm not allowed to do that kind of thing. It's been a real I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and when I started doing Espines in 2012, we were like, how do we get more women into this? How? And I've come to the conclusion that the only way to do it is to just target women, not say, hey, there are women that do this too. It's to just, you don't have to advertise to men. They will turn up. They'll come no matter what. They're just like zombies. You're like, oh, swords. They'll find you. You don't really have to try. But to try and get more women to do it, you have to get that message out there. Like, this is for you. And my female students have said to me, seeing you and Lizzie at the front of the class, being like, not just like, you know, part of the class or assistant instructors, but like actually being the person running the class, made me think, hey, you know, I can do this, and I maybe I do have a place here, kind of thing, regardless of my age, my background, you know, and all the rest of it. This is something I can do. You know, it's not something people even question. It's just, at me, it was just an automatic response. It's just like, this isn't for me. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of hurdles to sort of overcome, but I think,
like,
sorry,
there's a lot of really small things you can do which have a massive impact on how comfortable people feel in a situation. And like having a woman at the front of the class, or like in our context, I'm not necessarily like always like often leading a class, but I'm the first person people make contact with. Like, people go in, look around, and they go talk to Joe. So like I'm kind of the face of the club in that way. When people first come in, I'm like, hi, how you doing? And get people with all their paperwork and everything. And then like I have all my patches on my trousers, and I've got like the QT Hema patch and the S Fingers patch, and like the kind of having the rainbow flag on your trousers. You don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Takes no effort.
Straight people who aren't looking for that kind of thing won't care.
Yeah.
But for some people, just they'll clock that straight away, and they'll be like, this is a space for me.
Yeah, exactly.
The little things like that you can do that make people so much more comfortable. It's kind of a non-brainer, but you have to realise that those are things you can do.
Yeah, they're not people, you know, for people who aren't affected by these issues, it's just not going to register. And even the people who are affected, you probably sometimes don't even think, why am I acting in this way? Why do I feel uncomfortable? Why am I not just accepting that this is something I can do? What is it? You know, there's those internal and sort of external barriers as well that need to be removed. But the more we see, I mean, this is why I came up with By the Sword in the first place, is because I want to show the world that there are more people that do sword fighting than, you know, all those lovely straight cishet white men.
People with brown hair and beards.
Yes, with lovely beards. But there's lots of people that do Hema. My recommendation, Robin, I know your club has done this as well, London Historical Fencing Club, and anyone else who's listening, is to just run an open day for women. Just have, or if you generally just want to increase your numbers, just have an open day for whoever wants to come along and just try it out, where you can have like mini lessons. Last time I did this with my school, we had 3 instructors, and they each ran a mini, like 20-minute session on different things, and people could just cycle through. And then we had a room where we had loads of Q&As just pinned on the wall, and people could hold swords and stuff and just talk to the instructors and ask stuff. But if you just run an open day, just aimed at women and just advertised to women, we ended up with, I think when we did that last time, we ended up with 7 women and 5 guys in our penultimate beginners course. Anouk says, are you open to the teachings of the Church of the Spadroon? She just has to get that in there.
Of course. I am open to trying anything. I've done Sabre with Anouk and it was lovely, so I am always willing to try Spadroon.
I tried Spadroon once. You got to try everything once.
Interest in line dancing.
Yeah. Was it D.H. Lawrence said that? Power feint, looks like to me. Is that how you pronounce it?
Power feint.
Power feint. Power feint. Love you, Joe, says Slackstagram.
Oh, Chloe.
Anouk, what is your favourite modern feather? Regenier, Kvetten, length, weight?
I am a big fan of my Aureus.
They're lovely.
They're beautiful, and also handle really, really nicely. The Renaissance is very nice. I've got Alexander. I think it's the 2nd version. But
is that the name of the style?
Yeah.
By Aureus, okay.
So big fan of that. On the kind of slightly less fancy and expensive end of the scale, the Regenier Trinava Light is very nice. That if I have to replace my Aureus at any point in the near future, I'll probably be getting one of those.
Okay.
My absolute favourite feather that I've handled recently is Nick's custom Balefire, which is beautiful.
folks, go to Balefire's page or Nick Klang's page. There's this, it's just ridiculous. It's very stupidly sexy sword. It's sword porn.
So if I had all the money in the world, then I would get myself one of those.
A custom Balefire, yeah. That's what we all want for Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah. Chris's work is beautiful.
He's very good. Comox Valley Combat Guild. We are doing the same by inviting senior students to beginner workshops. Helps a lot with larger groups, sizes 4 to 17. Stale Dorito is the exact smell, yeah. I thought Red Dragons came pre-worn. Tactical Warfare, Hema Stank. Nick Daniel Lang, what's your favourite bragging point related to Hema? I get the feeling you two have discussed this.
We have not discussed this. He just said he was going to try and pick me up in whatever way he can. I mean, being able to sit here right now 4 years into my Hema career is a pretty big bragging point, I think. I'm very proud of that, and I'm very honoured to have been invited to teach events. And I think the thing that I'm most kind of proud of for myself was winning the Wessex League Technical Award last year, because kind of I've always told myself going into tournaments that I don't care how I do as long as I feel that I've fought well. And to come out of a tournament, particularly the last Wessex League event, where I competed in several weapons and got to semi-finals not semi-finals, the bronze final match for both of the women's events, and then lost to the wonderful
I did that in February. I lost both the bronze matches. I was like, by 1 point.
Yeah, look, I thought that was some of my best fencing, and there are a few times where you kind of go back to your corner going, that was fucking awesome, and that's pulling something off, and then kind of have the recognition from the community at the end of that event that everyone else thought.
That's nice, isn't it? You got everybody in the whole hall lined up, and they're all looking at you saying, yeah, we think you're the best at this. So that's got to be a good feeling. Comox Valley, you can brag for that. Comox Valley Combat Guild, how large are your clubs? How many long-term students versus short-term students? So you go first, Jo.
So on an average week, we have between 10 and 25 people in the room, which kind of says our core membership is kind of 10 or 15 people who will be there week in, week out. There we've got people who are kind of really part of our kind of club community but don't get to come to class quite as often. And then people who kind of come and go. There'll be people who'll come for 6 months and then disappear into the ether and won't see them again, or that kind of thing. But that's about as many people as we can fit in our hall. Is about 25 people.
Okay. 25 people, yeah, 25 people is probably how, I run the School of the Sword in England, and we've got 3 branches, and the one that I am responsible for, we tend to get, Jo, can you hear me? You've gone a bit blurry there.
Sure. Yes, yep. I can hear
you. We tend to get around 25 people to a session. I haven't checked the stats lately in terms of the spread, in terms of like how many experienced people we got at the top versus beginners. But I know we ran a instructor training day just before the lockdown, sadly, to get all the people who are just like, we think they're on the sort of cusp of being good enough to start becoming instructors. So we did a day, well, we did a sparring session, and then we did like I think we had like a 4-hour session with them to start talking about becoming an instructor. So to sort of give an indicator, we have 20 instructors across, I think probably more like 25 now, 20 instructors across the 3 clubs, the 3 chapters, and then we've got a tier of people beneath them who are about to become instructor people. So that will probably go up to 30 or maybe even 40 once these people are past that sort of level of, because what we do is we have like 4 sort of levels of membership, and when you've done like 400 hours, it's basically like you're a black belt kind of thing, but when you've done like 200 hours, you're at a level where we think if you want to become an instructor, you can, and you basically shadow someone who is an instructor for six lessons, and then you run your own around 4 to 8 lessons yourself with someone just sort of shadowing you, and then you're off on your own, and you can go and do your own thing. So that's the way that we've got it. That's the way that we run things in our school. But if we didn't, I'm not showing off, I'm just saying that the structure is useful. And if we didn't have that, I would have quit this years and years ago, because it was just like I was just teaching all the beginners and I was doing all of the admin and all the rest of it, and I was just like, I can't do this on my own, you guys are going to have to take the wheel, you're going to have to like help me out. So we came up with this program of people rolling in to becoming instructors if they want to. It's not obligatory, but most people do want to at least help out teaching newer folks as they come in, and that's how we do it. So we have a fairly large pool of instructors, and they're on a rota, so that you do like your 6 weeks and then you're free to go off and do classes or whatever. You just have to sacrifice a month of your time each year, or 6 months if you're me.
Really, really good way of doing things, because we have had kind of, it's mostly Nick teaching in our club.
Then you get people burning out and they don't want to do Hema anymore.
And luckily we've got people who want to teach, but not all the time. So we have people like step up and do guest classes and things. Sadly, we lost one of our best guys to you.
Sorry.
So Amelia.
It wasn't me, it was Amelia. Oh dear. Right. Comox Valley Combat Guild. We just got some professional photos done for advertising, and one of my goals was to get women in the advertising. Haven't released that yet. Other strategies for getting women into classes. Well, I think we've covered this. Just have women in your class. Just have women in your advertising material. I wrote a Tumblr article on this. I think I've got like a 10 commandments thing on how to get more women into your Hema Club, but I'm sure I could update it. I'm sure there's more things people could do. That it's I don't claim to be the authority on this. It's just my experience. Jana, this is why I resisted going to Hema classes for a while. But seeing Fran and discovering all these women in the community really made a huge impression on me as a woman and as a person of colour. Okay. Is the term Hema problematic in advertising? Does it scream white male? Is something like historical swordsmanship better? Other ideas? Thoughts on the term Hema, the acronym Hema? Have you got any, Jo?
Not really. I think it's useful over swordsmanship occasionally, because it encompasses, there's so much more than swords.
Yeah.
However, we have used historical fencing in advertising sometimes, and swordsmanship, and kind of use all sorts of terms because something will click with people at some point. And we've also done things like linking into nerd culture type things, mentioned Game of Thrones, mentioned Lord of the Rings, the type of stuff that some people might be a bit snooty about, but if it gets people's interest in, if you can point to Arya Stark and be like, you could be like that, then if that's what gets someone through the door, that's what gets them through the door, and I'm happy
whatever
to
it takes, anything.
Everyone.
A couple of my guys wanted to go to, and I think it was some kind of nerdy convention thing, and do swordy stuff. And I was like, yeah, do it if it gets people through the door. And they did like a Hema demo or something, and all these nerds just weren't interested. I don't think it was flashy enough for them. Hema is weird because it's so nebulous, but at the same time so specific. It's really hard to pin down. I mean, I was talking to Yasin the other day, and we were saying that historical probably needs to be removed from the term Hema. It's just European martial arts, because some of the stuff that we do nowadays is from a long tradition, like sports fencing, boxing. They exist. They're not like ancient martial arts or anything. And all the things like judo and karate and all that, they're all historical too, but we don't call them historical. They just continued. I mean, I think the reason that the word historical was thrown in there initially was to sort of just to define what we do as, historical people. And then people kind of think, oh, you mean medieval? And we're like, no, we're Renaissance. So it's really no, not medieval. It's hard. But Hema works. When you say people know, more and more people are starting to know what Hema means. Just like ordinary nerdy people go, oh, Hema, you do Hema. Like, oh my god, you know what I do. Sword fighting covers it. Sorry,
swords. I got very excited about some swords at a steampunk event, and the guy behind the store went, "Oh, what Hema Club is part of?"
Was his name Jeff? No, because I was going to ask you, that was going to be my next thing, because you're into steampunk. That's just the cup and saucer there. Is that did that have any bearing on your interest in Hema? Because I know a lot of people, because steampunk, Hema, they're all nerdy subcultures. Do you think there's a lot of overlap, or could there be a lot of overlap?
I think there could be a lot of overlap, potentially more in the kind of rapier, small sword type
saber
weapons, because saber, because that kind of thing that you can do in costume and look really cool. I think there'd be a lot of interest. I've had a kind of if you want invite from an event in my hometown, we're like, oh, if you want to bring your swords and your sword friends, you can do a demo. So maybe that'll one day.
Do it, Joe. I tend to call it historical fencing because I prefer not to have to explain an acronym. I agree with you, Nick. I tend to say historical fencing because then people know you're not talking about sports fencing. It's a quick way of describing it. Historical fencing. Anouk says, what event is on your wish list to go to? Let's pretend that the lockdown didn't happen and all these events are available to us. Okay, which annual reoccurring event is the one you want to do?
I'd really like to get up to Kings of the North.
Kings of the North?
Yeah, because I think there's a kind of section of the UK Hema community that I haven't had much contact with, kind of the northern people who don't get down to West and things like that.
There's a whole bunch of folks, that are up in that part of the world that I very rarely see.
On Facebook who seem really nice, and I've met some of them a couple of times, like people like Lauren Island, who I'd like to spend more time with. So that's kind of top of the list of events that I haven't been to before, seeing as
nice and local as well. Kings of the North. What colour? What colour is on your wish list to dye your hair next? Well, I've seen red and blue and green.
Yeah, I've had purple quite recently. I'm running out of pink. I think this was almost the last of it, so it might be back to more green type colours next until I can go shopping again.
I've never seen you silver or black or blonde.
I do not suit blondes.
No.
Blonde, like every time I dye it when I bleach it, it's weird.
Because you've got this very iconic hairstyle. Like all the time I've known you, it's like this peacocky,
yes,
cool crop. Any goals for the dog's breakfast that is this year? That's from Robin. What are your Hema goals, Joe? Survival.
Want to make it to 2021.
Make it to 2021 in one piece.
Yeah, that's pretty much a solid goal. But I'm slowly working through the rapier section of Maya, and I'd like to have a much better kind of foundation understanding in that by the end of the year. Fingers crossed.
So the rapier section of Maya.
Yeah. And hopefully at some point I'll actually be able to try it out.
Sorry, you're cutting out there.
Oh no.
To try it out.
Yeah.
Can I recommend
on
the English?
something that
Can I
isn't-
recommend the English Side Sword Open in February 2021 if Jay's running it? Then you can try out your rapier skills and pretend it's side sword. Naiad Moves from Kimberly. I'll often say historical martial arts / historical fencing. Historical academically means jack shit. Yeah, we've been over this, Yasin. Nick, I think the term historical was thrown in for elitist geek cred for those who couldn't bear to be associated with sports fencing. Ooh, controversial.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, and early modern. A nuke will bash you with a spadroon. The Ginger Viking joined. Steam-powered saber for the win. The saber will always make you look cool. My post-quarantine resolution is getting a saber. Okay, has anyone got any more questions for Joe? Now is the time. Assail Ku, please joined. Hello. I think my goal for the year is just making sure that By the Sword actually happens, because I've pushed it back to August. It would be really nice if it happened this year sometime. That would be great.
That would be nice.
It would be nice. Everything is in place. We just have to get rid of this pesky virus. Slackstagram says, "Can I borrow your sword?"
Yes, Chloe, you can borrow my sword.
Robin says, "No, I'm threatening you both with massive hugs." Nick, would you want to do more teaching, both within our club and maybe visiting other clubs as a guest instructor?
Yeah, I always want to teach more. My biggest problem with teaching within the club is the kind of, what do I teach thing. So it's fine when you go to an event because I've got my little pet things that I really like teaching people, and when you've got a thing that you go and be really enthusiastic about, that's fine, but I can't do the same thing every week in our club. So I think the skill of kind of putting together a lesson plan on something relevant is a skill that I would like to work on.
So how to craft a module of lessons to cover a particular subject or weapon or theory or what have you. And would you like to go to visit other clubs as a guest instructor, was the second part of his question.
If they'll have me.
If they'll have me. Okay.
Just knocking on people's doors. Let me teach you.
Let me teach you the ways of the German side sword. Nick again. Advice for fellow short-ass fencers. I'm listening. We've got 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Grow. Thanks, Anouk. That's not helpful.
Yeah. Be shorter. If you make yourself a tiny target, you just confuse the hell out of people.
Oh yeah, get smaller.
It's always been my kind of technique as a kind of big Eisenport or a Myers Flug, where the sword's out in front of me and I'm really small, and then they don't know what to do because you're tiny and they can't hit you. So that at least buys me time to think.
So be small and far away.
Be small and far away, and then very close to them all of a sudden.
Short time. Okay. I think that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us, Joe. It's been lovely to see you, and you've made me want to drink slushies more than ever. I'll see you online soon.
Bye.
Have a great evening. Bye.
You too. Thank you for having me. Bye.